Yo, what up, folks? How the hell y'all doing today? Man, listen, right, I just got done working, so you know what time it is, right? Yo, it's time for Tom Pease to do, you know what I'm saying, some type of content for the day, right? Because the YouTube algorithm doesn't like me unless I put out regular fucking content. So, with that being said, now, I done released all these this whole interview, right, in a 5-part series on my channel. If y'all want to check it out, it is what it is. It's also up on other places. Or go watch Fox Nation. I paid the fucking 99 cents to go watch this bitch. Now, there's part of this that I kind of wanted to break down and really get a little bit deeper into as far as shit's concerned. And I'm choosing part 3 of the interview that I did, you know what I mean, that I stood here and recorded or whatever, because I think that it has a lot of shit to offer as far as conversation is concerned. And I want to show y'all how to smash these fascists when it comes down to the idea, well, not even the fascists. I'll smash these motherfuckers when it comes down to the vaccine ideology, right? Because I literally did it tonight and it was fucking beautiful. I ran a dude off of Discord, straight up. Ran this nigga the fuck off a call, right? In front of like 10 other people. And everybody just like, yo, Tom's just too fucking savage. So like, yo, let's fucking bang this out and we'll have a conversation as we go through.
I support the parties in charge.
Exactly.
I
think this every day as I look around.
And, you know, and it's just like it's like the glasses and they live, you know.
When I drive by and I see a Black Lives Matter sign in someone's driveway, what they're saying is, I'm obedient to the regime.
Yeah, or I love power. And so there's a sort of duality between loyalty and ambition, because what you're saying is, I am loyal to the regime and I am happy for the feeling of power that being part of the party is giving me.
Exactly.
Okay, right here's where it is, right? Legit. So the mentality is this. Right? Like, yo, when you stand here and you hear these motherfuckers talking like this, and you immediately call them out, or you stand here like, just let them spout they bullshit off for, you know what I mean, a little bit, whatever. Right? And then you go, what's that I smell? Do I smell somebody who wants to be part of a powerful ideology? I can smell it on you. You want to be part of a powerful ideology. You want to be part of a powerful movement. You want to be part of the in crowd, don't you? I can smell it on you. I can smell the bitch in you. You ain't nothing but a brown noser who wants a piece of that power. That's an important ideology to hold. Legit. Yo, let's keep rocking though.
Exactly.
And so it's the most common thing in the world. And you know, you look at this regime, and what's so funny is that Americans are exposed to all of this starting in like, you know, childhood. They're exposed to all of this like dystopian fiction. Like, you're constantly reading about dystopias in your like YA books, and you're like, you know, it's nonstop. And yet, you know, you have these sort of basic dystopian things like, you know, the government, you know, these signs actually say "I love power," which is exactly what Václav Havel said in Czechoslovakia in 1976. I wonder if there's any way in which our system of government is anything like Czechoslovakia's in 1976.
Well, I think it's...
Well, let's keep this 100, right? I don't know shit about Czechoslovakia in 1876, but I do know about America today and America in 1996. When you're a child, you're taught to, you know what I'm saying, worship power. You're taught to worship the regime. You're taught to be a good piece of cattle for the machine. And I'm not one of these individuals who was, you know what I'm saying, able to hold that mentality long. Because once you start reading and you start learning, you start living your life, you realize that all this shit is bullshit at the end of the day, right? And literally, you smell it for what it is. It's basic, very simple power dynamics, in that they want you to worship fucking power as a whole. And the moment you move away from that, and even like stop worshiping like conservative side of things, because like they're dumb as shit too. Like they're dumber than a bag of hammers, right? Once you get away from both of those, right, and start moving away from things and get way outside of the Overton window, like the whole world changes and everything changes and your relationships change because you're no longer able to talk to regular people like regular people. And everything becomes an exchange of trying to move individuals further, like outside of that Overton window, getting them to think in a different way. My favorite one I did, I think, there was this lady who said something about the news, and it gave me a little opening. And I said, like, you really shouldn't be watching the news. I said, like, they're really terrible for our country and terrible for our community. And she goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you know how, like, every Halloween they stand here and they tell people, like, to sit here and, you know, go get their kids fucking Halloween candy x-rayed by the cops, right? You know what I mean? Because somebody might put a razor blade in it. She goes, yeah. I said, you know how many times that's happened? She said, no. I said, 0, ever. It's never happened. It's never been a real thing. And she goes, well, why do they tell us this? I said, because they want you to keep your eyes on this fucking screen so they can sell advertising. They don't care about what they're doing to the community because it's not their responsibility. They live in gated households. They're not part of us. They're part of a whole different class, a whole different regime of people. They don't give a fuck what they're doing to us and making us mistrust our neighbors and destroying our families and destroying our communities, destroying our culture. Just that little opening, that little nick in their fucking perfect diamond starts to like peel it back and starts to destroy its value as a whole. That's what you're supposed to do, and that's what you start thinking about every fucking time you have the opportunity. You fucking make a dent in their bullshit. Let's keep rocking though.
It's very close to it.
In some ways, the difference is it had a center. It had a center, and ours does not have a center. And there was a Politburo in Czechoslovakia in 1976. There was a Central Intelligence Agency. This was a classic totalitarian structure. And the thing is, what happens to Americans is they sort of look for this center and they don't find it. And they don't understand how the system can basically evolve to this point without having some kind of central control, because they see one of the various concepts that people find in this million words that they really like is my idea of the cathedral.
Yes.
And the point that I keep making is it's a Socratic point. It's simply a question. What is your theory of why the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other prestigious, and the Guardian and every other prestigious voice in society and every prestigious university in society is always on the same page?
Yes.
It looks as though there was why do Yale and Harvard always agree on everything? Couldn't Yale go libertarian while, Harvard is going woke? Like, why wouldn't that happen? And you look at reality and you're like, there's no way that could happen. That could never happen. And if it could never happen, it means that these organizations are essentially branches,
of the same thing.
Of the same thing. But when you look at their organizational structure, you don't find any evidence of that. And you're like, where are the wires? Like, I'm looking at this and I'm not seeing the wires. When I saw, when you look at, say, the history of any authoritarian regime, whether it's...
Sorry, I got to ask my producer, are you following this?
It's amazing. When
Yo, man, listen, like, I'm loving the fact that, like, Tucker, like, he goes, are you following this? And he goes, yo, this shit's amazing, right? Legit. And it is, right? And I'm going to break this down a little bit deeper than I think that Yarvin does. So here's what I've come up to as far as my mentality of why this is happening, right? So prestigious institutions, Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, whatever it is, right? They were never meant for regular people, right? They were never meant for like us, middle class people or lower class people. They were never meant for us. What they were meant for were guys like Thomas Jefferson or an individual like Andrew Carnegie or his son, right? Or Henry Ford's son, right? It was meant for upper crust aristocratic individuals who actually ran things. That's why like Harvard has produced like 20 presidents or whatever it is, right? Like 15 presidents were part of the Skull and Bones Foundation. Like all these individuals are Masons, right? Like, and like the Mason thing doesn't really apply, but we'll get there, right? So the mentality is this. So what they're doing is it's the same thing as when ancient Greece used to send their aristocratic kids to go and learn from guys like Socrates or Aristotle, right? Or Plato or whoever it was. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking your children and you're educating them in a manner in which they can learn how to rule and learn how to rule benevolently, right? Because you want them to be benevolent leaders. You don't want them to be malevolent. Like no fucking king is going to send their son to go and learn how to be a savage, right? Because you want him to be a properly educated leader who, you know what I mean, is loved by the people as much as possible, right? Now, granted, you want the people to be ruled, you know what I'm saying? But on the same point, you want them to feel like you're their king for a reason, right? And so that's what these institutions are trying to, or meant to do as a whole. Now, up until the 50s or so, 1960s, like it was something like, you know, we had something like 400 colleges in the United States. And today we have over like 5,000. It's been a massive proliferation of colleges in the U.S. And basically all these colleges, you know, I mean, are new. You know, I mean, they're like, you know, like we had like fucking state schools or whatever back then, like Michigan and fucking Indiana, whatever, right? You know, I mean, university and fucking whatever. But like there's a lot of these newer colleges or whatever. And all of these colleges, they kind of got their walking orders and their curriculums and their shit from Princeton, Harvard, Yale, fucking Cambridge, Georgetown, fucking Brown, right? Because these are old institutions. Like fucking Thomas Jefferson went to Princeton, right? And so basically these liberal arts that are taught to these fucking kids, right, are all coming out of these prestigious institutions that are meant to make future leaders. So when you have the curriculum is set by the colleges who are supposed to be producing the aristocratic part of our country, which, you know, you need aristocrats. You need people who are, you know what I'm saying, the people who are trained, or the people who are going to lead need to be trained properly on how to lead. You know, like you're going to teach them Sun Tzu, you're going to teach them Machiavelli, you're going to teach them, you know, John Locke, you're going to teach them, you know, all these individuals who are very, very important as a leader, right? Because you have to have the mental ability to stand here and study history and cultures and, you know, I mean, leadership and politics and civics and, you know, like fucking economics and war and just everything that goes into being a leader. Now, with that being said, when you're training people to stand here and lead in an oligarchy or a democracy, right? What you're going to do is you're going to train them in how your government works, right? And you're going to train them in the way that your government can be the most benevolent or benevolent as possible. Sorry, man. Right? Tripping up, man. Listen, I've been grinding all night. And when you do this, you'll stand here and have all the individuals who are trained to be future bureaucrats, right? Stand here and be trained in the most benevolent ways possible, which means like good. You know, I mean, you're doing things for like good instead of doing things to be like, you know what I mean, like fucking raw towards somebody or evil. And you're doing it to serve the people. And this is why I think that they're all moving in the manner in which they're moving. Now, the ideology of that, as far as starting to, or when you start having this many individuals being trained, like it's something like 40% of the population now goes to college or goes to university, whatever way you want to put it. When they do so, you're having a massive amount of your population sit here and be trained in these ideologies. So it's almost like a giant groupthink. And Mulbug or Yarvin gets into this a little later. He talks about when you go to college, what you're really doing is you're applying for a rank, right? And in getting your rank in college, right, at sheepskin is, no different than like, you standing here applying to, like West Point, as an officer, right? Or, trying to, like, you're basically becoming part of the American aristocracy when you stand here when you go to college. And in order for you to stand here and become a, fully fledged member of this aristocracy, you have to spout their ideologies and you accept their ideologies. And you know that the way to move up in their hierarchy is to continue to become more of a part of this and participate in these powerful ideas and contribute to them. That's the mentality. And you cover up for their fuck ups and you spout their shit. And here's the real thing. If you're nothing but a midwit and you're just regurgitating things, you're not really thinking about it. You're not challenging those narratives. That's how you end up with the woke ideology that sounds more like a religion and it's more dogmatic than it is a fully formed idea. Let's keep going a little bit more.
When you look at, sort of the power structure of Eastern Europe, Nazi Germany or whatever, it's a classic dictatorship, classic dystopia. You see the Fuhrer. The Fuhrer has a minister of information.
Right.
He's like, print this.
There's an org chart.
There's an org chart. There's an org chart. And when you look at Harvard and Yale and, the whole rest of the system, okay, there are these accreditation bodies, there are various funding things, but there's no org chart. And the thing is, you can sort of basically work very hard to kind of see an org chart that isn't really there. Or you can think very hard about why this happens. And I can tell you it's not a hard concept to explain. I think it's a hard concept to evangelize, or it's a pretty subtle concept, unfortunately. When you think about the way these oligarchies work, the model of the people who believe in these things, that put the signs on, their lawns, is actually very reasonable. They're like, why should we delegate these decisions to Harvard? And the answer is Harvard and Yale and the whole, other, collective of this world. Why do we delegate these decisions to these people? There are very, very clear pragmatic reasons for doing that. One is we know that these institutions select the smartest people around. They're incredibly competitive. They're incredibly hard to get into. They're incredibly hard to rise in. And they create these incredible concentrations of expertise. And, maybe the way I think about COVID is a good example of the way these things go wrong. So basically, that view of the world says, when the public has to make decisions about virology, who are we going to call? And the oligarchic answer is, obviously, we are going to call the virologists. Oh, what, are we going to call your, aunt in Iowa? What? Right. Excuse me? The one I saw from the plane at 30,000 feet? Are we going to call the people at the rodeo? No, we'll call the virologists, right? I got it. I'm brilliant, right? So, this was their answer. And this is a 20th century answer. This is, the idea of basically just delegating without any accountability, responsibility for important decisions.
Now, all right. So I actually had a dude come to me tonight. And we were talking about this. And we were talking about how Tucker wrote in a book that he thinks that the individuals who are running this country are becoming degenerate. Let me put this way, right? And I know a lot of people ain't going to watch up to this point. But, those that do, thank you. When you had the managerial revolution, where you had the original aristocracy who ran this country were the landowners and the individuals who own these, startup businesses like Carnegie or Rockefeller or, fucking Morgan, whoever, right? They, ran the fucking companies. They made day-to-day decisions. They were on the floor. Today, as a corporate CEO, you're not on the floor. Right? You don't you don't have the expertise to be able to fucking do these things, right? To make these type of decisions at a very base level, because a lot of the technical shit that goes into, say, if you're making a car, right? The guys who run the company, your CEO or your board members, legitimately have no idea what the difference is between, your shock and your strut. you know what I mean, or the fucking spring. Like they don't know the difference between, you know, like if you handed them an O2 sensor and a crankcase sensor, like they wouldn't know the difference between the two of them because they're not fucking trained in this. And this is where like you need guys with technical expertise to be able to do things and actually like engineer and design stuff. And so you had a proliferation of these people. Like you had massive amounts of these motherfuckers have to fucking end up coming. And the people who actually own the businesses to begin with have long since just become stockholders. And the CEO is making day-to-day decisions based on, you know, market forces and things of this nature. You know what I'm saying? Like you build this car, you know, kill this model, don't kill this model, right? And so, you know, the individuals who are actually running things, because there's lots of them who are like making these smaller decisions going up the chain, they're managers, right? And this is the end result of the managerial revolution, right? So like the actual individuals who are like aristocrats, like don't really fucking exist in the end of the day, right? Like they're still rich, they still have money, they still have, you know what I'm saying? Like their kids go to these liberal arts colleges and they might become activists. You know what I mean? They might become senators or some shit. Or even presidents in like the case of like the Bushes or whatever, the Clintons, you know what I'm saying? Like Hillary Clinton's father, you know what I'm saying, was, I think, like some type of factory owner in, you know what I mean, fucking Connecticut, right? And this is the mentality of this, right? Like these individuals, like, yeah, they might end up becoming politicians and running things for a little bit. Like look at Trump, for instance. But the truth of the matter is that they're not really oligarchs. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're not, you know what I'm saying? Like really running things, you know what I mean? Because the vast majority of them are just rich people who own stock. They're fun, you know, they're foundational investors and shit. You know, they run charities because they don't have the technical expertise to actually run the business that they're fucking own. You know what I mean? That they're fucking invested in. That's the mentality I think a lot of people are missing. Like there's no head to the snake. Them motherfuckers don't even exist. Dead, you know what I mean? They're just there. You know, they're landowners. You know, they fucking, they don't have a lot of sway in things. They might, you know what I mean, like lobby Congress or lower taxes on some things, but that's it. Let's keep rocking though.
To academics, basically kind of dates mostly to the Woodrow Wilson era.
Yes.
So, you know, the progressive era with a capital P,
right.
You know, it's about, and this is when basically America's, so if you see like description of the Gilded Age, like, you know, go to an old American city, see all those like brick buildings and like, you know, beautiful old stuff, you know, all of like DC, you know, all of that is built in what we call the Gilded Age, which is a period when America was governed very much the way China is now. It was very corrupt. Politics was this incredibly sordid, screwed up business. Shit got done.
Yeah.
Shit got done in a corrupt way with people stealing a bunch.
Yep.
But did shit get done at enormous velocity, really fast, all the time, in the physical world, not just building some goddamn software? Absolutely. Right. Look at the, you know, the way they built the Empire State Building. Right. This is the world that built the Empire State Building. So, and at this time, America, like China, is a third world country. It's culturally insecure. It does not have, before World War I, it's like, it's a peninsula of Anglo-American culture. The center is in London and has always been in London. The center of finance is in London. You know, America is the periphery. American intellectuals look at this and they're like, we should be the future. Look at a map. And what we actually need is essentially, and you'll see this written very, very explicitly, for example, in Walter Lippmann, who I'm sure you've read.
Yeah.
Right. And what America needs is basically a new class of Platonic guardians, a new class of basically people who are sort of, so, you know, just are not these like sordid stealing politicians. Like, you know, so this comes out of people like Henry Adams, for example.
Yes.
Who's like this like fourth generation super, you know, he's like, you know, from this amazing political dynasty. He's like the intellectual leader of America, as the editor of the North American Review, which was like the New Yorker of its day, but better. And you know, he's basically like, that whole world of old money and old wealth is like, no, actually, this isn't working. And the new world will be a world of science. And it needs to be guided by science, and it needs to be guided by expertise. What comes out of that is the invention of sort of all these social sciences, which are really sciences of government, or in probably most cases, pseudosciences of government, because they don't actually seem to work out very well when you try them. which is a thing that normally
sociology, psychology.
Yeah. And so, you know, all of these things. So you get sort of all of these sciences that are basically sciences of government and sciences of how the government should do something. And once sort of any kind of governing power, whether it's the people or a king or anything other than an oligarchy, decides that the oligarchy has the last vote, and it's the oligarchy's opinion that counts, and basically delegates it to the experts, the scientists, you know, the mandarins, the priests, whatever you call them, you've ceded power to these people.
And then,
as I said, this is the end result of the managerial revolution in the end of the day, right? We went from, you know what I'm saying, individuals who owned shit and landowners and things of this nature, right, to delegating it out to fucking managers and scientists, like individuals who were trained in fucking colleges. That's what the fuck really happened in the end of the day. And we're at the end of that at the moment. We're like reaping the last rewards of that right now. You know what I mean? The destruction and the decay of these individuals are where we are. The destruction of America, the decay of America is due to them and their scientific, you know what I'm saying, fucking oligarchical bullshit.
The consequence,
democracy's done at that point.
Oh yeah, democracy. Yeah, remember my two no's, right? You know, it isn't and it shouldn't be, and it can't be. And the American people just simply don't have the power to do that. They don't have the energy. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the energy. It's not a question of even whether they would do it well or badly. They would just do it weakly, and power would be instantly ripped from their hands. It would be like having an absolute monarch who's like 6 years old. There's no way this kid, even if he's the rightful king of France, is actually the king of France.
Right.
So, you know, his best choice is to use whatever power he has to make sure some guy who's not molesting him is the king of France. That's basically where we are, right? You know, and sorry, that was a little coarser than my usual analogy.
So good.
But
let her rip.
Yeah, let her rip, right? And so the problem is what this does to the experts. So it's like you basically have this pool of expertise. You have this network of expertise. And if you have a network of expertise in something that has no possible effect on power at all, like astronomers, you look at American astronomy and you say, has this been corrupted by power? You know, have astronomers, is there a woke astronomy, not just woke staff practices in astronomy, but like seeing like constellations that aren't there, making up like new kinds of astronomical objects, just like totally out of nowhere, like for like, you know, for headlines, you know, no, I don't think we see that. Is there a woke math?
You know, I hate to be a dick, but I think Neil deGrasse Tyson's part of that. The end of the day, like legit, I think that motherfucker is part of that shit. Like, yo, like, I think there is woke that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it does exist. Like, all these motherfuckers, like, yo, Pluto's no longer a planet. Like, you know, why'd you have to reclassify it? Like, it's been a planet forever. You know, it circles the sun. It's its own fucking body. Like, why? Oh, it's too small. It's not fucking, you know, sound whatever. Fuck, like, I think it is that.
No, I don't think we see that. When we look at the Soviet Union, again, centralized, you know, system, but still with many oligarchic, you know, had a party, right? You know, but it also had a leader. And you look at the Soviet Union, the math is fine. The math is perfectly fine. The astronomy is fine. Soviet astronomy, no, they're studying the same skies that we're.
Y'all, let me keep it a buck, man. Like, yo, string theory is complete and utter bullshit, right? Yeah, again, like, yo, there's pieces of this that legit, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to disagree with Yarvin on, like, yo, string theory, the grand unified theory, all fucking complete and utter garbage. Legit, the math is not okay. You know, it's been corrupted too.
We're studying Soviet sociology, Soviet psychology, Marx-Lenin studies. It's all just trash, you know? And so when you look at American expertise, you tend to notice that the fields that are funny, that get weird and kind of screwed up are ones that involve telling the government what decisions to make.
Right.
And it seems that when you have a field, a way of people thinking that involves telling the government what decisions to make, suddenly you have this marketplace of ideas, and as a believer in oligarchy, you're like, okay, not only do we not have just one expert, we have a whole network of experts, and they're convincing each other, they're always arguing, and they're participating in this adversarial discourse. Yeah, in math, that's what's going on. In astronomy, that's what's going on. In chemistry, that's what's going on. There's no politicized chemistry in the Soviet Union, right? But when it comes to sociology or like anything that involves advising the government, if you're advising the government to do more, by definition, you're making more of an impact. You matter more. And so what happens in an oligarchy is sort of this kind of currency of the trade becomes impact. It becomes mattering. And so, let's say that you're studying Earth's climate. Back in like 1970, you were just studying Earth's climate. You were just like a weather nerd who was like, oh yeah, let's study the weather in a long term. Suddenly, you're sort of forced into the position where there is this global effect. Doesn't matter, is it scary, what's going on here? And, I'm what's called a lukewarmist, where, yes, this effect is real, but I don't think it's all that important. And there are plenty of very pedigreed climate scientists who are lukewarmists. And let's say Judith Curry, for example. And if you're someone like Judith Curry, you have would be a great person to have on, by the way. If you're someone like Judith Curry, she ran like the whole huge climatology lab for many, many years. If you're someone like Judith Curry and you basically write a paper that says this isn't very important, this is like happening, but there's probably Afghanistan is something we should worry about more. And you're attacking yourself. You're attacking all of your peers. You're saying your work is not very important. You should not be getting a lot of money. You do not matter very much at all. And you're not being a team player. And so in the landscape of the marketplace of ideas, things that say this whole marketplace is unimportant and shouldn't grow its budget next year are vastly disfavored, because basically they're really, really antisocial. And and so that sort of craving, when you're inside the deep state and you have that craving for impact, it has a much more definite form. You're basically looking for funds. There's this whole world of things that write grants, that apply for funds. And so this whole world basically has this enormous incentive to emphasize its importance and to matter and to make an impact. Well, guess who wanted to make an impact? Some virologists. And these virologists were like, going along, doing virology, just being virology nerds. And then SARS happened. SARS happened, and this virus jumped out of a bat into a civet cat, into human beings, and killed a lot of people. Unfortunately, wasn't well enough adapted to humans to start a pandemic. So naturally, if something bad happens, and you're writing a grant, a good way to write that grant is to say, well, this something bad could happen again. Let's study this thing to understand it, to make sure we're better equipped to something if it happens again. We can predict it. We can learn more about this phenomenon. This is important science because this is something real that has affected the real world. Good grant proposal. So basically you write that grant proposal and you're like, I know what? Let's go into like bat caves in China and find all the bat viruses and see if these bat viruses could emerge into humans. And how will we see if they could emerge into humans? Well, we'll screw around with them and try to make them into human viruses. What could go wrong, right? And the ostensible goal, and this was not a Chinese research project. This was an American research project started by a Chinese grad student here who went back to Wuhan and was doing that there. The infamous Batwoman, Xi Jinping, right? But this was American science. I think American.
So legit, he's not wrong in any way, shape, or form. Like, legitimately, power and money corrupts. And, when you're standing here dealing with the ideologies of the government and standing here having these type of conversations, right, where you go, hey, look, we want more funding next year. We're going to have to stand here and find a way to get it. We're going to have to sit here and toe the party line in the end of the day. That is, that's something that we all know is wrong. You know what I mean? That's something that we have these type of conversations about. But anyway, yo, look, I'm Tom Pease with Pnoid News. Y'all know what it is. Like, share, and subscribe. You know what I mean? Hit that motherfucking notification bell and make sure you hit all. All right? Peace.